just a few seconds.
Okay.
Okay, so I just looked and I guess everyone is here, or everyone who needs to be here is already here. So I guess we can start. I will have a short monologue at the start, and then I will give the word to my colleague who will lead the discussion. So I will give myself a jump start so that we aren't wasting any time. So dear ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome you to the Visegrad Youth Forum 2020 conference. My name is Tomáš Čekme and I am the president of the Euro-Atlantic Center. Euro-Atlantic Center is a student NGO that works in the field of security policy and international relations. And the Visegrad Youth Forum is the flagship project of our organization. First of all, let me say that I am deeply sorry that we could not meet here all, that I could not meet here you all today in Banská Bystrica in person. However, I would like to express my gratitude to all of you that you have found time in your busy schedules, even in these difficult times, to attend our conference. I believe the COVID-19 situation has hit all aspects of our lives, and the cooperation of the V4 countries is no different in this aspect. I also believe that the current tough climate that we are all going through have shown us that there is maybe no better time to discuss the future of the V4 cooperation and the V4 Plus format than perhaps today. Therefore, I'm looking forward to a fruitful discussion and I believe a fruitful 2 days. The 9th edition of the Visegrad Youth Forum could have not been organized without the financial support of the NATO Public Diplomacy Division, the Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs of the Slovak Republic, and the city of Banská Bystrica. I'd like to thank our partner organizations, Forum Mladých Diplomatov from Warsaw, Institute für den Donnerraum und Mitteleuropa from Vienna, Matthias Corvinus Collegium from Budapest, and Junior Diplomatic Initiative from Prague. Now, without further ado, I would like to give the word to the moderator of this discussion, Mr. Alan Lagabo. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the word. Once again, I would like to welcome you all to our panel discussion. I must say that I'm very happy that although the conditions are as they are, we were able to make this reality and make this happen. Now, I would like to proceed to introduction of our panelists and guests. Mr. Martin Cimerman from the Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs of the Slovak Republic. Welcome, Mr. Cimerman. Ms. Pavlína Janebová, Deputy Research Director, Association for International Affairs, Czech Republic. Welcome.
Hello, good morning.
Mr. Łukasz Ogrodnik, Analyst, the Polish Institute of International Affairs, Poland. Welcome.
Hello, greetings from Warsaw.
Mr. Dániel Varga, Project Associate, Center for Euro-Atlantic Integration and Democracy, Hungary. Welcome, Mr. Varga.
Good morning.
And Mr. Dániel Martínek, Research Associate, Institute for the Danube Region and Central Europe, Austria. Welcome.
Good morning from Vienna.
Now, before we jump into discussion itself, a couple of quick notes before we start. For the participants joining us via the Zoom application, you can write your questions in the chat throughout the whole duration of the discussion, and later on some of the questions will be picked and asked by me towards panelists. However, we will also have a couple of opportunities during the discussion to ask those questions directly. For the general public, there is also a YouTube live stream, which can be found on the Facebook page of the Euro-Atlantic Center. Now, after this short introductory part, let's jump right into it. I would like to use my privilege and my position as a moderator to ask the first questions to our panelists, and I think maybe we can start lightly. So before we jump into the whole problematic of whether the COVID will, so to speak, make or break the V4 format, I would like to ask our panelists, what is your personal view or what your personal opinion on the format, V4 Plus format itself? What are the pros and what may be the possible cons of such entity? Mr. Cimerman, let's start with you, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for organization, for the invitation. Once again, congratulations to you that you made it happen in such difficult times. But as you, similar with us, we are getting used to this new reality of conferencing, new reality of diplomacy by using this e-platform. So once again, thank you and my best wishes for fruitful discussions and outcomes. To begin, briefly, I would say that V4 Plus format in general for us represent the kind of informal, flexible initiative or platform that enable the four Central European countries to reach out beyond a region and to somehow get into much broader perspective. Generally, or first of all, yeah, our main framework for our operation, as we see V4 or V4 Plus, is EU membership and NATO membership. This is the base we are built upon, and using this base, we can also move and work further. But I think the V4 Plus got during the recent years got some kind of positive image. We've been engaged regularly with partners within also and without and outside the EU. For example, I can say Germany, France, Baltic states, or even outside the EU, Japan, South Korea, US or UK. So this is the kind of forum, the V4 that permits or allows the V4 to see the things, to see the issues and challenges in a larger perspective, and it offers truly fruitful forum for exchanging views in issues of common interest.
Thank you very much for your answer, Ms. Janebová. Your take on this problematic?
Thank you. First of all, let me thank you for having me. This is a great opportunity for me to be able to speak here today. When I look at the V4 Plus format, I would start from a really broad and general point, stating that it's always important to reach out from the formats that we might get locked up in. And by that, I mean the V4, especially since 2015, has sort of been really locked up in itself and really reaching out to each other instead of outside of the group. So it's always good to look out and to look to build different partnerships. That being said, I think that it's also good to look outside the European Union. It was already mentioned that the V4 Plus format work with countries like Japan or South Korea, and that they can be immensely useful also, for example, in building or strengthening relationships that wouldn't have such a chance of being developed were it not in this multilateral format. We can say that the chances of countries like the Czech Republic or Hungary to build up relationships with, for example, Japan would not be as great if they were not developed in the framework of the V4. But on the other hand, we also could have seen in the not so recent past that it's really important to consider if there is an added value for everybody in the sorry in the potential cooperation. What I'm speaking about is the summit that was planned, I think, last year or perhaps the year before, between V4 and Israel, that was interrupted or disrupted by the diplomatic quarrel between Poland and Israel. And for example, from the point of view of the Czech Republic, we could have seen that the added value would not have been as big, because the bilateral relationships between the Czech Republic and Israel are great, are one of the greatest in Europe, in the European Union, and the whole development didn't really bring much. So yeah, that would be it from me for this for the beginning.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ogrodnik, please.
Thank you for having me. On the V4 Plus format, I would say that it's a useful tool to maintain relations with other countries, also with other groupings, or with organizations, a tool to strengthen relations where it suits the V4 states. It's not always the case that V4 states agree on with whom to cooperate or to talk with. Pavlína Janebová from ANO just gave an example of the V4 Israel V4 Plus, or in this case V4 minus talks with Israel. There are other cases, like during the ongoing Polish presidency, the V4 Plus Belarus, with the president recognized, or among others, by V4 countries, the president Tsikhanouska, Belarusian president. There was an aim of the Polish presidency to organize such meeting in Lublin, Poland. However, due to the let's say veto of Czech Prime Minister, who also said that other prime ministers were against such idea, it didn't happen. However, there's a long tradition of the V4 Plus cooperation format with different dimensions. The European Union's dimension, the V4 leaders met, for example, the autumn this year with European Commission representative, the chief Ursula von der Leyen, talking on the migration as the new European Union's migration pact is being presented. migration a very vital topic still in all V4 countries. Another dimension is V4 plus groups of countries like Western Balkan countries, particularly during the Czech presidency, that was visible with other formats like Weimar Triangle, with states within this so-called Friends of Cohesion group, and V4 plus particular states. And here are some differences. For instance, Hungary, that was visible during the Hungarian presidency in V4, was more eager to meet with remote countries like Egypt, while, for instance, Czech Republic or Slovakia are more eager to meet with closer neighbors like Austria or like Germany. Poland, because of its size and ability to cooperate with bigger states, it's not so eager to meet with such remote countries like Japan, also being mentioned, or South Korea. In the Polish presidency program, the V4 Plus tool is also highlighted in different contexts, also security, like with the V4 Plus, United States and Great Britain, innovations like Sweden. So it's a vital tool being used. Even yesterday, there was a V4 Plus meeting, V4 Plus Spain, of the deputy foreign ministers. So it is being used and will be used as a useful tool. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Varga, your view of the V4 Plus format?
Thank you very much. And of course, thank you so much for having me. And coming from a student organization background myself, I just wanted to congratulate you for making it to the 9th edition of the forum. So, and I hope these 2 days will be very useful for everyone participating. A lot of good and useful thoughts have already been mentioned. I'll try to provide my own ones too. Pavlína mentioned that it's very worthwhile and very useful to reach out, and I'd like to second that. And I think it's a very positive approach for this whole V4 Plus format, because let's be honest, these are 4 Central European countries who, one by one wouldn't really have that much presence and that much strength. But this V4 Plus format, and South Korea, Japan, they've all been mentioned. This V4 Plus format can give the Visegrad cooperation a global presence, even though it's not a huge one, or can be measured to the level of the United States, let's say. But certainly, this would so this is something that I think should be cherished and of course continue throughout the years. And we're talking about pros and cons here. Off the top of my head, I can't really think of a lot of negatives about this format, because it's based on mutual interests, and the countries these 4 countries will act only if there is common interest in a special policy or a sectoral field. So if there is a common interest, then that means I think only positive outcomes can be reached with common incentives and initiatives and a common will. And it's such a flexible and more of a liquid thing to talk about, and that's why I think it's very, very useful and good, because we can talk about a global presence. Of course, we know that the Hungarian government has this Eastern opening foreign policy that is, of course, very it's supposed to be grandiose and a big thing. But if these 4 countries can act together, I think the yields will be much greater. And we are very fortunate to be involved in a project that is currently running with Pavlína and Amo, that is focusing on the V4 plus regional groupings within the EU, and it focuses on coalition building. And I think it is of utmost importance really for the V4 to have this positive and initiative way of doing things within the EU, and to have this V4 plus format to talk about the Benelux states, or talk with the Benelux states, negotiate with the Baltic states when it comes to, I don't know, the Eastern Partnership, or the Nordic states, or the southern states. It's all valuable. I would just say that. So yeah, and I think I will stop there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martinek.
Okay, first of all, thank you very much for having me today, and congratulations for organization of your forum. We are actually organizing on the same day our own Young Scholars Forum, so I'm pretty aware that that it's difficult to organize such a big forum during these current difficult circumstances. What is my opinion? First of all, I would like to say that what I'm going to express are my personal view and opinions. I'm not representing an official Austrian position. When it comes to V4 Plus format, I would say that, of course, every regional cooperation is important. The V4 represents for Austria a sort of like, as well already mentioned, a flexible, liquid cooperation, which is of course useful since Austria has many ties with its neighboring countries, with the V4 countries such as culture ties, trade relations. Many people from V4 countries are living in Austria. So of course this Central European cooperation is important. However, on the other hand, I must say that the Visegrad group got quite a bad reputation, not in the region itself, but also on the European level. We can also go beyond, and I would say also even at the global stage. And here I am speaking about the recent developments, not only in Hungary and Poland, which we are all well aware of, but I'm also here speaking, for example, about Czechia, and also until recently also about Slovakia, since the revelation of ties between a ruling party and, let's say, mafia-style businessman 2 years ago. So yeah, bad reputation is currently around the Visegrad group, and I think that's really damaging the image of the group itself. And I think that's also the reason why Austria is currently more involved in other cooperation formats. Here I would just mention, for example, the Slavkov or Austerlitz cooperation format. We could observe many meetings in the last couple of months of this cooperation format. Or I would also say a cooperation format which was established by the Austrian Federal Ministry for European and International Affairs, the so-called Central 5 format. So I think Austria is currently more involved in these two cooperation formats than it is the case of the Visegrad group, given the recent political developments in the Visegrad countries. However, I don't want to repeat myself. We have Austria has many culture, trade, and other common interdependencies. So it's definitely important for Austria the cooperation in the Visegrad format. However, I wouldn't say that we can see, as was already mentioned during the discussion, which we organized together with your center a couple of weeks ago, I wouldn't see any integration of Austria into the Visegrad in the foreseeable future.
Thank you very much for your very interesting opinions and takes on this. And I would like to now come back to several things that you've mentioned and I marked here. So we definitely see, as Mr. Varga said, the potential on the about the global presence of the V4 plus format. However, as Ms. Janebová mentioned, there is a question of added value of this format, because different states of V4 may have different relations with the outside countries. Plus, there is also a factor that has been mentioned several times, that right at the moment, each and every one of the Visegrad group members are dealing with its own internal domestical politics, let's say. And when we talk about the COVID situation in the V4 countries, I think that is no secret that it is a huge source of misinformations, fake news, and the result of this is the polarization of the societies. So, and there are some skeptics that say that how can we think about the future of V4 plus format when we have those differences within the boundaries of V4 between our four countries? So what are your takes on the problematics of being or becoming more consistent and coherent as V4 countries on the political topics that are most pressing on the multicultural scene, and not only domestic politics, but also in the international relations? Mr. Martin Cimerman, please, let's start with you again.
So I would begin by saying that I'm quite different position now. So so as a official representative of the ministry, so I would I'm assessing my views now, if speak for government or to find some balance, but as we see, or I see it now, and when looking back at this year experience that confronted us of Slovakia or V4 or Central Europe, that confronted us with such a unprecedented challenge to our domestic policy, but also to regional cooperation as such. I think that the COVID crisis and the practical challenges it brought to us, it directly touched upon the value of good neighborly relations and effective cooperations in region. So it also, I think, it also underlined the fact that we does not necessarily need to rely on formalized institutions or formalized platform, but we also can benefit from flexibility, from first-hand communication in topics where what we deem mutually beneficial or mutually purposeful, and we can work further on it. So I think that this challenge posed by COVID has prompted us to think and to consider or to reflect how to form or how to approach the perspective of the V4 cooperation as we see the approaching 30th anniversary of the Visegrad cooperation. It's quite time to reflect, and I wouldn't like to give such any political statement or elaborate in details. Personally, I think that the main lessons learned from the time we are living now is that, as the Austrian foreign minister Schallenberg put it, neighborhood really matters, and the value of it is truly proved during the crisis times. This is the first one. The second one, or the other one, I would say, this is we should make the best use of flexibility, and flexible and informal channels, and mainly to elaborate regionally on issues of common interest. Identify issues where that we deem mutually purposeful, that could generate any added value that could be notable for the 4 or 5 or 6 of us in the region, and the work on that. For example, potentially economic recovery, building infrastructure or developing infrastructure in the region, digital and green transformation, for example, and also to concentrate our efforts where our interest overlaps or meet, for example, in EU affairs such as migration or cohesion, common agriculture policy, as well as defense and security. So there is. I'm saying it personally as a private person. I'm seeing it in a way that we should focus on concrete topics. There should be not automatism at any cost, and to look on concrete and respective issue that could generate added value for all of us. That's for my part for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your opinion. Ms. Janebová, your take on this issue?
Thank you. I would agree that the COVID-19 pandemic certainly has been a reality check for the V4, and not only for the V4 but also for the European Union, where a lot of phenomena showed up, and a lot of the real positions sort of showed up. For example, when we were witnessing the closings of the borders, etc. But I would also agree with what Mr. Cimerman said about no automatism in the V4 cooperation. I think it needs to be clearly stated that the original purpose of the V4 definitely was not to build an institutionalized institution or organization, but only to cooperate when there was a common interest, and when in areas where it worked. That being said, the political weight that the V4 has been given in the recent years by some governments, especially, probably we all know that I'm talking here about Hungary, who has been using the current Hungarian government has been using the Visegrad cooperation as one of its most important foreign policy tools. That which resulted in the V4 being perceived as sort of a unified bloc, especially in the West, and even leading to this very developed East-West divide discourse that is currently very much used, for example, when speaking about the MFF negotiations. Considering the V4 plus format, it was already mentioned that the cooperation, for example, with the Benelux countries is very developed, and I think it can be used, and it certainly has been used, for example, by the Czech presidency, Czech V4 presidency last year, and in the first part of this year, to sort of damage control. I think such formats can be used to sort of soften the image, sorry, the negative image that the V4 has been acquiring for itself. And of course, we can talk, we as the V4, we can talk with the Benelux countries, but we'll probably leave out the elephant in the room, which is the rule of law issue, but we still can talk about a common foreign and security policy, or a single market, or the digital. And still, these talks can have a benefit and can have an added value. But that was certainly true even before COVID. That the V4 needed to reach out from its sort of closed group. But when I go back to COVID, it was also said already that the Visegrad 4, in line with what I've said about it, only cooperating when there was a common interest. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the V4 didn't really prove to be the best tool to cooperate and to face the challenge that the pandemic brought. Other formats have been mentioned by Mr. Martinek, and I think that's really important to consider that, for example, the cooperation within the Slavkov format or the Australitz format, or the newly developed Central 5, including Croatia and Slovenia, really proved very useful in the recent months. Also, when it comes to the Czech Republic, our government, which I'm not a part of, worked closely with the German federal states, which really proved to have a potential in also developing our further relations. So yeah, coming back to my original point, I think that the COVID-19 was a reality check for the Visegrad cooperation, and it showed us perhaps its limits. Yeah, and that's it for this moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very interesting ideas, really. Mr. Ogrodnik, your opinion?
I wouldn't be creative if I say that the V4 cooperation has been overshadowed by the COVID-19 pandemic. That's the most pressing issue, reflected also in the motto of the Polish presidency, back on track. And the first stage of the first wave of the pandemic showed the lack of communication actually between the V4 countries, not only the V4 countries, but in the region, as for instance, the borders were closed, surprisingly also to the partners in the region. And that is why, for instance, the virtual COVID-19 center of V4 was established. The meetings of representatives of health ministries and foreign ministers of V4 countries meeting. The aim is to meet as frequently as possible, actually every single week. So from the lack of this communication, the new tool within the V4 was established. It doesn't mean that the V4 is being institutionalized. That's, I would say, an ad hoc tool to make the communication better. As it is seen rather critically. Pavlína Janebová already mentioned the Czech view, but I would add to this view the value of foreign ministers of Czechia, Tomáš Petříček, who actually said that platforms like Slavkov format, already mentioned a few times here, or the new established platform with Austria and Slovenia, the C5, Central 5, are being more effective than the V4 in the fight with COVID-19 pandemic when it comes to communication with regional partners. So the COVID-19, I wouldn't say that it will change the V4 plus format as such, but it changed slightly the dynamics of the regional cooperation. We observe, for instance, looking at these two mentioned platforms, Slavkov Triangle and C5, it's not only about pandemic. These are the roots, for example, of the C5 format, but when we look at the agenda of last foreign ministry meetings, because that's basically on this level of foreign ministers, the C5 format, we see an extension of topics being discussed, including fight with terrorism, that was after this terror attack in Vienna, or the rule of law when it comes to the C5. When it comes to Slavkov triangle consultations of foreign ministers, we witnessed recently that they were discussing the transatlantic relations after the change of administration in the United States. So I would say that we witness a strengthening of these two platforms. When it comes to V4 and V4 plus format, I wouldn't say that the pandemic will change it much. Unfortunately, there is no anonymity when it comes to the EU budget, which is also very crucial when talking about the pandemic recovery. Highlighted also in the Polish presidency program, Back on Track, the fight with the circumstances and the ongoing financial crisis. It's in the very core of the ongoing presidency. It was also highlighted during the Czech presidency, but to sum up, pandemic brings a new reality to the Central European cooperation, but the V4 Plus, as it's the main topic of our discussion, wouldn't change so much, as V4 will invite, for instance, partners from Western Balkans, from Eastern Partnership countries to back them, to show its experience, as it was pledged in Kromierz's declaration of 2004. The year when all V4 countries joined finally the European Union, and Slovakia joined in this year also NATO. That's it from my side.
Thank you very much. Mr. Varga, your opinion?
Sure. Well, first off, I can only agree with, I think Łukasz and Pavlína already mentioned that I don't think that the pandemic will, change the V4 in such a dramatic and substantial way, because I think we're all aware with the fact that ever since its birth, the V4 and its intensity has been really, it has been a volatile thing. It's always depended on the circumstances, the internal political circumstances, what the specific countries thought to be of their interest. And of course, as Pavlína mentioned, with the Hungarian government's this new focus of the Hungarian government in its foreign policy, meaning that the V4 is, one of their strongest tools when it comes to, let's say, the European forum, even if it's only, in a rhetoric way. I don't think that, well, of course we can talk about, or of course the critics can talk about the breaking of the V4 Plus format, but it's, as I mentioned earlier, it's always been based on common interests, such as the V4 organizations, the V4 cooperation itself. So that means if there's common interest in the future in any sectoral sector or field, then there is going to be some level of policy cooperation and coordination between the partaking countries. And well, I don't think that the V4 is ever going to be an institutionalized cooperation, but I don't even think that that is its destiny, because it's been working for 3 decades now, and the 30 years is a very an absolutely wonderful achievement, and that's been its core drive or impetus for success. I think that we can act based on common interests, and of course, well, if I want to go back to the pandemic side, a lot of different policy fields have been mentioned, but I still want to add this healthcare cooperation, because we're living in this pandemic, and of course, the COVID-19 outbreak was a reality check for V4, of course, but let's not forget that it wasn't only a reality check for the V4; it was a reality check for the whole world, and we all saw in the first wave during the spring wave that the whole of every country basically turned inwards. Cooperation or maybe even communication wasn't the most followed path when it came to trying to tackle all the impacts. But if we want to look for a way out of this, I think the V4 Plus format is actually something that can be dragged into this formula, because if we want to talk about economic recovery or the transfer of healthcare knowledge, V4 Plus can be a very essential and very useful format for this. And the negative view of the whole V4 has been mentioned, that it's not really considered as a positive player or a block. And I think that if this can also help. I mean, if we can start more intensive cooperation on, let's say, healthcare, and within maybe the V4 Plus format, it can bring this more positive view, that is, external view, how in the international community views the V4. So yeah, of course, there's always going to be critics questioning the need for, well, the V4 Plus format, or even the V4, because of course we've all been noticing that, of course, there are divergent opinions within the V4 when it comes to the future of the Europe debate, the MFF, or other European questions. But I think that's always been the case, and we've still been able to, found common interests and common grounds, and that should be, I think, the path to be continued in the future too.
Thank you very much for your answer, Mr. Varga. Mr. Martinek, your opinion?
Thank you very much. So concerning the V4 Plus format and COVID-19 pandemic, I would say that Austria was hit really hard during the first wave of the pandemic, especially the western parts of the country. But at that time, I wouldn't observe any joint cooperation, unfortunately, not regional on the regional level, and not to mention on the European level. However, when it comes to second wave, taking into account that the summer was quite calm in Austria and I think also in other Visegrad countries, I would say that the second wave is already turned out to be more cooperative when it comes to COVID-19 to containing the spread of the COVID-19 virus. With that, I mean that there were many meetings in this Slavkov format or within this C5 format that were actually discussing the spread of the virus or how the Central European countries can combat the spread of the virus. For example, a clear testimony of that is the mass testing, which was introduced in Slovakia, and the Austrian government took these lessons learned from Slovakia. They were discussing not only on the prime minister's level with Prime Minister Matovic, but they were also discussing this internally on the foreign ministers levels and even on the let's say bottom levels. So these are lessons learned which turn out to be a best practice, and Austria is currently introducing these mass testings also here in Austria, and I think that also Czechia will follow this best example. I wouldn't say that the COVID-19 pandemic changed or will change in the near future something on the V4 or V4 plus cooperation, bearing in mind that all aspects, I mean, this nationalistic aspects, these common approaches or attitudes of the V4 countries, and Austria has already been there before the pandemic came. So I wouldn't see any changes regarding these developments. When it comes to common stance of the V4 and V4 plus member countries, of course, there are many common issues like the Western Balkan enlargement, attitude to the countries of the Eastern Partnership. And I think this is something where the countries have a common stand. And I think that's a good example how the Visegrad and Visegrad Plus cooperation worked and works, and probably also will work in the future. And I would also like to mention that there are also many cross-border cooperations well established between Austria and neighboring countries, especially between Slovakia and particularly between Czechia. When it comes to healthcare services, when it comes to traffic, there are really good, well-established cooperations. There is one healthcare center in Gmund, which is in Lower Austria, and that's a really best practice example how cross-border cooperation can work when it comes to healthcare services. So cooperation between regions such as Lower Austria, Upper Austria, South Moravian region, South Bohemia, Vysočina, these are really good examples how also cooperation can work, which can be also some sort of, I wouldn't say substitution to Visegrad 4, but in addition to Visegrad 4, C5 cooperation format, Slavkov format, these are also good examples of regional cooperations. I would like maybe to go back to this economic recovery previous speakers mentioned already. It's a paradox because we should all have a common stand when it comes to economic recovery after the COVID-19 pandemic is gone, hopefully soon. But when we see what is happening when it comes to Hungary and Poland, that they are blocking the future budget of the EU, I think it's a paradox we can observe currently. And also green energy was mentioned already. It's, I would say, I would assess green energy as a thorn in the cooperation between Austria and Visegrad countries, because I'm here speaking about nuclear energy. It's really no-go for the Austrian government, and Austria will never support these developments in Visegrad countries. There is already huge criticism on the part of Austrian government when it comes to nuclear plants in Slovakia, when it comes to construction of Dukovany in Czech Republic. So I think these aspects are really damaging the V4 plus cooperation format. And as I said, there are many good and positive cooperation areas, such as culture, trade. But if we are not able to overcome these important issues in the future, I think there is no possibility to close or integrate Austria into the V4 format. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your analysis and opinions. Now, I would like to give the opportunity to our participants to ask questions to our panelists directly. So if any of you have the specific question you would like to ask, whether on a specific panelist or just in general, please do so now. You have the opportunity.
Hello, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'd like to ask a general question. It regards the role of the V4 in the EU enlargement process. One of the speakers has mentioned that there might be a future chance in the future for the further cooperation and enlargement of the V4 format by extending it by Western Balkan countries. And my question is, would it be correct to say that the enlargement policy can be considered as a significant driving force behind the cooperation between Poland, Hungary, the Czech Republic, and Slovakia? Thanks.
Maybe we could, thank you for the question, first of all. Maybe we can change the queue now. So if anybody wants to start, let's say, Miss Janebová, let's start with you this round.
Thank you. I would say it's the EU enlargement. Or let me start again. We can speak about the Western Balkans enlargement, and here I see a broad consensus among all of the V4 countries. And I will later I will get into if it is the driving force behind the V4 cooperation. I just think that it needs to be mentioned that in the past, the eastern dimension of the European Union neighborhood policy also had been sort of had been an issue that was important for the V4, but in the past years that's no longer the case, or there is no longer the consensus given the really bad, I would say bad is the correct word to describe the relations between Ukraine and Hungary. So this is something that we need to bear in mind. But coming back to the Western Balkans, I would say that the Western Balkans enlargement, or the Western Balkans policy, EU policy towards the Western Balkans countries, is something that the V4 countries have in common, and where their preferences are very similar. But I wouldn't say it's a driving force, because for it to be a driving force, it would have to get, in my opinion, more attention on the highest political level, and that is not something that I have been seeing, at least in the Czech Republic and in the foreign policy or the EU discourse of the Czech top politicians. That being said, it's a fact that on the working levels among the foreign policy officials or MFA officials in the V4 countries, the Western Balkans enlargement has been something that they have been cooperating on quite well. So yeah, that's my view of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ogrodnik, your reaction on the question, please.
It was on the EU enlargement, not the V4 enlargement, right? So, to the Western Balkans, because the V4 enlargement isn't the point. It was mentioned, for instance, in 2016 in Austria by the candidate at that point, Mr. Hofer, who said that Austria should join the V4, but as Mr. Martinek already mentioned, some corner differences like nuclear power. It wasn't realistic at that point, and it still isn't. But the EU enlargement to Western Balkans and to Eastern Partnership
Apologies,
countries.
sorry for interrupting. The question is, what is the role of the V4 in the EU enlargement process? And can we consider it as a driving force for the V4 countries as a cornerstone of the cooperation? I mean, the EU enlargement process at all in general.
Yes, I would say that V4 countries are natural ambassadors of countries aspiring to the EU membership because of their history of transformation, their experience, willingness expressed, as I mentioned, the Commission Declaration, but also in other papers and V4 Plus formats with the Western Balkans. These are natural ambassadors to these countries. There are slight differences. For example, Poland, because of its historical heritage, interests, and so on, is more looking at the Eastern Partnership countries than to the Western Balkans, as is Hungary, for instance, due to its geographical location, which is pretty much obvious. But there are also some bilateral issues jeopardizing the cooperation of NATO, Ukraine. Pavlína Janebová already mentioned it. So there are some bilateral issues which impact the larger process of enlargement. But generally speaking, the V4, which is also expressed in the Polish presidency program, is backing these processes. When it comes to Eastern Partnership, there will be EU plus Eastern Partnership summit during the upcoming Czech presidency in the European Union, and the aim of the Polish presidency is to help with the organization of this the summit, as it was during the first summit of the Eastern Partnership plus European Union during another also Czech presidency in the European Union. So generally, when we look at the declarations and actions which the Czech presidency in the V4, the recent one, showed, they are ambassadors of the aims of Western Balkan countries and Eastern Partnership countries, and will back probably more or less effectively the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your opinion, Mr. Ogrodnik. Anybody else from our panelists would like to react to this question? Please go on.
Sorry, maybe I'll add something to the mix, because yeah, as Łukasz just mentioned, we cannot forget about geopolitics or geography, and that's why naturally Poland is always looking more to the Eastern Partnership. And that is why when we talk about the enlargement of the EU, well, at least within a Hungarian context, the first thing that you associate this to is always going to be the Western Balkans. And we can all remember when during the Hungarian presidency of the EU, how vocal the Hungarian government was about the enlargement or towards Croatia. And of course, there are the bilateral relations with the Western Balkan countries are very positive. It's really a shame that it's not true with regards to Ukraine, because as I can only well, as Łukasz mentioned, and it's a very good way to put it, because it jeopardizes the whole Euro-Atlantic integration of our eastern neighbor. Well, we can talk. There is the V4 plus Western Balkans summit every year, and there is also very strong cooperation between V4 and Western Balkans think tanks. That is a very, very important layer to this whole cooperation. But I agreeing with what Pavlína said, I wouldn't go as far as to say that the EU enlargement is the driving force behind the V4 or that much of a driving force. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cimerman. Mr. Martinek, would you like to add something?
Yeah, if I may. I could only agree with almost everything that has been said, but I just wanted to add something, and that's that I think the true added value we can offer in enlargement processes or in association processes. Even with Western Balkan partners or Eastern partners, and that's our experience and our know-how we gained post 1989 regarding the transformation and reform of our societies, economies, and also our know-how we gained in all pre-accession periods to the EU. As far as I know, this is the base for many concrete activities and projects that are going on in Western Balkans countries, and also in some Eastern partnership countries. So this is all true value we can offer, and I think that we are seeing it similarly, and just to add, I just mentioned Western Balkans Fund that has been created upon the example of the International Visegrad Fund, so to support civil society, to promote the intra-regional cohesion and this kind of soft power capacities. So it also plays a very important role. So that would be my picture in general. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, Mr. Martinek, your take on this?
Yeah, thank you. So I would say when it comes to Western Balkan enlargement or EU's enlargement in general, I also wouldn't see it as a driving force within the V4 cooperation or V4 plus cooperation. I would here observe actually 2 points of view. The first one is the official one, because if you take a look on all the official foreign policies agendas of the V4 countries or Austria, we can see that each country fully supports the enlargement of the European Union, be it in Southeastern Europe, be it in Eastern Europe. But when we take it from other side, the reality looks quite different. I would say we have to admit that the enlargement process, it's stuck a little bit, not maybe a little bit, but already for a couple of years, for maybe a couple of decades, speaking about Eastern Partnership and Western Balkans. And all these countries are in waiting room, waiting for entering the EU for such a long time. So I'm not sure how we can proceed in this direction further, but when it comes to Austria, I would just say here that Austria always cultivated and cultivates its role as a bridge builder, these common words, bridge builder between East and West. Has, of course, something to do with its neutrality role since 1955. But another question is if it's more appearance or is it more substance? That's another question which I'm not going to discuss here. But yeah, I think each country of V4 and V4 Plus format fully supports the enlargement, but the reality maybe looks a little bit different. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your opinion. Now, are there any more questions our participants would like to ask directly right now? If yes, please do so.
Hello, I have a question. Greeting from Poland, everyone. I have a question regarding the economic response to COVID-19, because it was already mentioned that the COVID crisis has revealed and the polarization and independence of the countries. However, I do believe that it was just we are in the aftermath of the immediate health crisis, and we have the bigger crisis coming along, the economic one, which will probably last with us longer than the health one. So my question to the panelists is that keeping in mind the political situation in the EU and the differences that were mentioned between the V4 countries regarding the current budget and recovery fund negotiations, how do you see the situation play out? Do you think there's any way for the V4 format to create the common and coherent economic response to the crisis, or even start the discussion about it? Thank you.
Mr. Varga, you can probably start with this round of answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That is a very good question, actually. Well, I would hope that would be a very positive thing to do. I think if the V4 can act, as a initiator or an accelerator in these terms when it comes to giving a successful and substantial economic response to the looming crisis. But to be fair, you cannot really separate this question from the MFF negotiations. As all members of the EU, this is such a vital and essential question that will, impact the coming, almost a whole decade. And with the Next Gen EU attached to this whole budget, without this, there is no sound or coherent or successful economic response. And right now, what the V4, unfortunately, only Poland and Hungary are doing is not a successful and coherent response to what can be a very, very dangerous economic crisis, and what already is signing the effect, showing the effects of it. So I'm very much curious about how next week's European summit will play out, because to have a functioning budget starting from January 1st, not only will they have to agree basically next week, they will have to arrive by the legal documents already drafted to have enough time to implement and start implementing the whole budget. So unfortunately, this is something that cannot be separated from one another. I really hope that there is going to be a positive approach during these negotiations that I'm sure are currently ongoing too, and that the scandals and the scandal that popped up a couple of days ago in Brussels about a Hungarian MEP who's now no longer an MEP and no longer actually the member of the ruling Fidesz party anymore. I really hope that this can be put aside and a sound agreement can be brought under the roof. So yeah, I'm really hoping for a sound and coherent and successful economic response, but it cannot be separated from the budget negotiations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martinek.
Sorry. Yeah, from the Austrian point of view, or from Austrian perspective, I would say that already during the meeting, 2 days after after Poland and Hungary announced that they will veto the negotiations or the multi-annual financial framework, the Austrian foreign minister and Austrian chancellor expressed it already clearly that Austria fully supports this control mechanism on the rule of law. So I think this is also a sort of no-go for Austrian government, and certainly this is not a responsible behaving on behalf of Hungary and Poland, because all the European countries or EU countries desperately need this recovery funds, need these financial means. So I'm not in the position to answer on how to overcome this issue. I think the meeting next week will have decisive importance on the future developments. But yeah, as I said, from Austrian perspective, this is something which is similar to nuclear energy, I would say. So this is really no-go for the Austrian government, and I'm pretty excited how the developments will be in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you. Mr. Cimerman?
So yeah, the issue is quite sensitive one, and position of our government is quite, or has been quite clearly expressed. I don't want to elaborate on it just because it's also a political one. Yeah, for our government, I don't want to go into some personal assessment or conclusions in this topic. I understand truly the sensitivity and the point with everybody of us stuck in. Yeah, I can say only that, yeah, the rule of law agenda is truly important for our government domestically. That is for it represent a strong component of its mandate that had been given to our government, to our new government taking power this year, taking office this year. So this is the one pillar of rationale behind the position, but at the same time we are aware that as already been said, that without agreement, without compromise, there would be no talking about recovery. So I am keeping my fingers crossed for our teams, not for Slovak teams, for every member state teams in Brussels and in Sherpas offices that would truly we truly assess the sensitiveness of the situation, and the time, the clock is ticking. So we'll see what the next day will bring. So keep all of us keep our fingers for all of us. Thank you.
Well said, well said. Miss Janebová, your opinion?
Thank you. First, I would like to point out that this MFF situation has been, or one good aspect of it has been that it gave the Czech Republic and Slovakia the chance to define their positions partly against their before partners, because we all heard the Slovak Foreign Minister Korčok and perhaps a little less loudly the Czech Foreign Minister Petříček to talk about the importance of the issue of the rule of law, and that it's by no means something that defines the before cooperation. So I really appreciated it. That being said, the EU currently finds itself between a rock and a hard place, because there are basically two scenarios. First, that there is no MFF and there is no recovery mechanism, and who knows, or we all know it's evident that unless these mechanisms and the MFF is agreed upon, the economy, after the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, will be much more grief than it will be anyway. On the other hand, the rule of law issue has been going on for at least 10 years in the European Union, and looking at the importance of the rule of law and as a value, as something that is stated in the treaties, it's really important to pay attention to it, and I would say it's high time the European Union pay attention to it. If the European Union doesn't at this moment stand up to the Hungarian and Polish ultimatum, then it puts into question it's the values that it's built upon, which is dangerous, I would say. Looking at the economic recovery and the economic future, the future of the economy in the V4 from a more general perspective, I would say there are opportunities excuse me, for the governments to make the necessary economic reforms, to use the momentum connected with the European Green Deal to find or to profile themselves in new areas and in new areas. But on the other hand, we also it's also possible that in the negative scenario, that the Western investors will leave the region, and then we can probably also see it will probably also be possible to see the sort of a race to the bottom with the competition between the V4 countries to attract the Western investors again. So I really don't know. I think the situation currently on the European level, and with the negotiations coming up next week, the European Union really finds itself in a crucial moment. And I want to say I'm really curious about the end. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Thank you very much, Mr. Ogrodnik. Your take on this topic?
Well, lockdowns introduced by the member states before, as well in spring, in autumn, had a large impact on several branches. And how severe the situation is was also reflected in the Eurostat data when it comes to the GDP rate and so on. However, V4 countries are doing relatively good when it comes to unemployment rate. As well as I know, Czech Republic is still has the lowest unemployment rate in the European Union. Also, the industry hasn't witnessed so damaging effects as it was feared in spring. This is also due to the relatively good condition of German industry, and all V4 countries are very much linked to Germany. Also, as German is the biggest trading partner to all V4 countries. But when it comes to the V4 response to the challenges, I wouldn't say that V4 has tools to fight the economic effects of the pandemic. The International Visegrad Fund is not about the stimulus package. Its budget is obviously too small for such goals. So the V4 countries link their hopes to fast recovery to the European Union response to multi-annual financial framework and to EU recovery fund. But as it was multiply said during this panel discussion, there is no agreement on the linkage between the rule of law and the EU budget and recovery fund. We witnessed, especially in last week, the strengthening of the Poland's Hungarian cooperation, as first Prime Minister Morawiecki witnessed Budapest, and then a few days after this visit, Mr. Orban visited Warsaw. So we don't really see a V4 as a whole in these negotiations. Rather, the Slavkov triangle. There was very interesting panel discussion between Slavkov triangle foreign ministers recently and the European budget ongoing process, also taking into account the linkage to the rule of law principle, was in the core of the discussion. And there was an agreement, as well as I witnessed, between the Slavkov triangle foreign ministers and these countries, but there is still no such agreement in V4. Perhaps it will change, but
thank you very much.
That's briefly in a nutshell. Thank you.
Of course, thank you very much. Now, of course, our time is unfortunately limited, but still there were many interesting questions from our live stream on YouTube. And I would like to ask probably to our foreign panelists, in your opinion, how did the large-scale testing in Slovakia influence steps to fight the pandemic in other V4 countries? Mr. Ogrodnik, let's start with you now.
Me? Sorry, it was me?
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't. Okay, then. Well, we all read the news and we were amazed by this logistical challenge that is the whole mass testing and screening process. But I wouldn't say that it had really much of an impact on how measures are being taken right now in Hungary. Or at least if there has been any developments, I don't think that these are influenced by the Slovakian or the Slovak mass testing. Starting from last week, there is not even a compulsory testing for everyone that is employed by the state. That meaning mostly teachers and kindergarten nurses, to screen out the cases in the schools, but that was rather an internal political decision or a decision that was driven by domestic politics and party politics. From a Hungarian perspective, really, apart from watching the news and reading about the results and waiting for the results and seeing how such a mass testing can be carried out in such peculiar circumstances as they are right now. Apart from that, there wasn't really any influential effects on the Hungarian measures.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Mr. Martinek.
The question was related to the mass testing in Slovakia, right?
Excuse me once again, please. I didn't hear you correctly.
What was actually the question? Sorry.
How has the large-scale testing in Slovakia influenced the other countries in their fight with COVID-19? And if there was some inspiration from it?
Yeah, sure. So as I already mentioned in the first part of the discussion, the Austrian government is currently introducing the mass testing also in Austria. They are starting on the level of the federate states, starting with the Western federate states. I think in the next couple of days, the mass testing will be also introduced in eastern part, particularly in the city of Vienna. So, and as I already mentioned, also there were many discussions on this issue, also together with the Czech government, and yeah, they perceive it as a good practice and as a certain way in how to contain the spread of the virus, or at least to find the clusters of the virus.
Thank you very much, Ms. Janebová.
Thank you. I have to say I'm not really familiar but I've been only watching the news regarding the mass testing and all the testing option as a citizen of this country. So I can only say from what I've observed, I don't think that I think that the mass testing had been considered by the former Minister of Health, who then was forced to step down because of some internal political scandal. Anyway, I don't think that we will take the example of Slovakia. I don't think that the Czech Republic will take the example of Slovakia and undertake mass testing. I think the testing will be much more focused on the vulnerable parts of population, like for example, the elderly, and yeah. So that is for me. I'm sorry that I don't have more information.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ogrodnik.
Slovakia actually became a reference point to Poland's authorities when it comes to mass testing. The Deputy Health Minister said that in Polish plans there's mass testing in the regions, one of the regions with highest rates when it comes to COVID-19. These are also regions neighboring Slovakia, so the south of Poland, it's Śląskie, Małopolskie and Podlaskie województwa, regions in the very south. But as well as I know, also in Slovakia, the massive tests were firstly done in the regions. It was north of Slovakia, in the regions like Bardejov, also with the highest rates, and then the next phase was the pan-state mass testing. So Poland is watching and partly taking example from Slovakia.
Thank you very much. It's very, very good to hear. Now, before we end the discussion, I would like to ask one more question. Let's do a quick lightning round. And it will be the question of the discussion itself. So will the COVID-19 pandemic spell the end of V4 Plus format? Very shortly, in 1 or 2 sentences. Mr. Cimerman, let's start with you.
Certainly not. It only showed that it was not a game changer, we can say, but rather a reminder of what true regional cooperation means, what the good neighborly relations are about, and what we make together of it. So I think that would be the main lessons learned from the COVID, and and also it as from my personal experience at the ministry, it taught us a lesson that it's always useful to have first hand open communication channels with your neighbors, just for the cases when you need to respond immediately to some practical aspect or issues or problems that arise, as during the pandemic, for example, border regime or repatriation of the citizens. That's the thing I would like to highlight, that the repatriations of our citizens, as from the V4 countries and Austria as well, has not been such a successful without mutual support and solidarity. So that's my point that I would end with. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Janebová. Your short opinion on this?
Well, I don't think so. I don't think that the COVID-19 pandemic will spell an end of the V4 Plus cooperation. I think that international cooperation and finding common grounds with our partners in the European Union and elsewhere will be important under any circumstances. So that's, in short, that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ogrodnik?
V4 Plus format will remain a useful tool for the V4 countries, especially when it comes to the European Union's members. Data show that the most frequently met partners in this V4 Plus format are especially the Central European countries such as Romania, Bulgaria, Austria, also Germany, but secondly, also non-European countries, but this is not to this extent used format where in the fields where is needed, like innovations, V4 Plus Japan, South Korea, Israel. So it will remain as it used to be before the pandemic.
Thank you very much. It's very good to hear. Mr. Varga?
Well, in short, definitely not. I can only agree with the previous statements. I think it's an opportunity, really. And yes, the whole pandemic showed that these regional cooperations here within Central Europe can really complement each other. And in the long term, I think it's only an opportunity for the V4 Plus format to going back what I said previously, to increase the V4's global presence.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Mr. Martinek.
Thank you. So the answer on your question would be not for sure. I would just say that the V4 countries will remain important partners for Austria. The V4 Plus format will remain an important cooperation tool for Austria, in addition to Slavkov Triangle and C5 initiative. And on the other hand, I would mention that the integration of Austria into V4 is definitely not on the agenda of the Austrian government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, before we end this discussion, I would, so we have some memory and something to add on our social media. I would like to ask our participants to turn on their cameras if they are capable of doing so. And we'll do a quick print screen that we will share later on our social media, on our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook as well. So if you could do that and just look for a camera for a second. And of course, just the ones that are okay with it. We have 4 more people. Okay. So, thank you very much. And now I would like to give the word to Mr. Tomáš Čechmed that will further introduce the technical details of our further proceedings. I would like to thank our participants for their participation and great questions, and also our panelists and speakers for their wonderful opinions and expertise. Thank you very much once again.
Okay, so just short information from me. So also thank you from my side for all of you that you have participated in this quite interesting panel discussion. So with the workshops that are coming right now in a few minutes, we have a slight change of plans regarding the division of the participants to the workshop groups. So do not look at the division that is already in the Facebook group, but we will give a new division. So we will write your name and the link that you should join. So just wait for it, and then please use the link as I said. So that's just a quick information from me. Thank you very much.